Tonight, some big changes in a mini-budget. The new Chancellor lowers national insurance rates and drops the highest income tax bands.
We promised to release the enormous potential of this country. Our growth plan has delivered all those promises and more, Mr. Speaker.
Nicola Sturgeon says the super wealthy will be laughing all the way to the bank. Amid the political spin, we'll have analysis and reaction.
My original bill was like £40 a month for both gas and electric, and now it's tripled in price. So I just don't know how they can justify it, to be honest.
Scottish potatoes under threat from floods, drought and rising temperatures. Climate change could mean the humble tatty may no longer be grown here.
And fans and players from both sides prepare for Scotland versus Ireland as Steve Clarke urges focus from his players.
It was just to treat the Irish game as well as we treated the game against Ukraine, to try and get the 3 points.
I'm Emma Cameron in Edinburgh.
And I'm John Mackay in Glasgow. This is the STV News at 6. Good evening. It was pitched as a mini-budget, but today the Chancellor announced a huge package of tax-cutting measures. Kwasi Kwarteng's plans bring benefits for big companies and for the wealthy. The cap on bankers' bonuses will be scrapped.
But Scots on lower incomes will also pay a bit less because of a decision to reverse a hike in national insurance payments. Well, live now to our Westminster correspondent, Catherine Sampson. And Catherine, it didn't feel much like a mini-budget today, did it?
No, not really. There was nothing mini about this. It was a massive package of measures from the new Chancellor Kwasi Kwarteng, and it is going to lead to a surge in borrowing. Now, clearly, the headline grabber today was this tax cut for top earners, for those earning over £150,000. Now, that does not apply in Scotland. In Scotland, it's the Scottish Parliament that sets rates. But this whole package today is going to mean some interesting choices and questions for Scottish Government ministers in the months ahead.
Good morning, Chancellor.
Barely in the doors, Chancellor Kwasi Kwarteng had no red box today because technically this wasn't a budget. But that small blue book had some big announcements. He's reversed the planned rise in national insurance contributions put in by Rishi Sunak and says his plans are about driving growth.
We promised a new approach for a new era. We promised to release the enormous potential of this country. Our growth plan has delivered all those promises and more, Mr. Speaker. And I commend it to
the Chancellor is scrapping a cap on bankers' bonuses and plans to raise tax on big companies. Alcohol duty increases, including on Scotch whisky, will no longer happen. And in the rest of the UK, top earners making more than £150,000 a year get a tax cut. The 45% rate is scrapped. And there'll be a 1p cut in the basic rate too. This doesn't apply in Scotland.
This statement is an admission of 12 years of economic failure. And now here we are. One last throw of the dice. The only things that are going up are inflation, interest rates and bankers' bonuses.
She stretches credibility beyond breaking point, saying that tax cuts for the rich, whopping bonuses for the bankers and low corporation tax for companies will somehow refloat, magically, Britain's sinking economy. This right-wing, Thatcher cosplaying shambles of a government is making choices that they will never feel the consequences of.
Choices lie ahead for the Scottish Government too. Tax rates north and south of the border were already diverging before today.
The cut in tax in the rest of the UK will mean that the deduction to their budget to reflect the fact the tax is devolved will be smaller, which essentially means they'll have more money. They can choose to keep that extra money and not pass on a tax cut to Scottish taxpayers and spend it on services. Or they could choose to change their income tax system so that they pass on at least some of that to taxpayers.
I hope that those tax cuts are going to be handed on by the Scottish Government. And the reason they can do that is because built into these numbers, the Scottish Government will get £630 million more on the basis of today's announcements added to their block grant.
The Scottish Government will look carefully at the implications of the budget. There's obviously tax changes and potential impacts on public spending in Scotland. And we've got to come to a balanced view which looks at the tax implications, the implications for the economy and the implications for public services. So we'll look with great care and set out our decisions in the forthcoming Scottish budget.
The new Prime Minister has said she's prepared to be unpopular to do what she thinks is best for the country. It's a big step today and a big gamble too. Catherine Sampson, STV News. Well, look, this is the biggest raft of tax cuts for half a century. It's worth around $45 billion by 2027. And what you're seeing here is a change of economic direction for the Conservative Party. Now, tonight, the Treasury is saying 2.3 million Scottish workers are going to get these national insurance tax cuts. They say that would be worth around £285 a year on average. I suppose the context of that, though, of course, is inflation is continuing to go up. Some concern, though, from anti-poverty campaigners tonight, some part-time workers who claim benefits actually risk having these cut now if they don't look for more work or take what was described today as active steps to boost their income. You heard there from John Swinney. He's carefully considering the Scottish Government's stance. They had originally committed to publish an outcome of their emergency budget review within 2 weeks' time.
OK, Catherine, many thanks for that update. Well, businesses here have welcomed the moves to reverse national insurance increases and scrap plans to raise corporation tax. They say the measures will give firms more breathing space in the midst of this crisis.
However, charities have warned the UK government is not providing help quickly enough for those already struggling with bills. Our political correspondent Ewan Petrie has been getting reaction to the Chancellor's statement.
The Chancellor's plans mark a sharp change in direction for the UK government. But the impact will take time to filter through. Those already struggling with rising costs say they need help now.
My original bill was like £40 a month for both gas and electric, and now it's tripled in price. So I just don't know how they can justify it, to be honest.
Watching what I'm doing, basically do what I have to do. If I have to keep my jacket on for a couple of hours, that's what I do.
The UK government hopes tax cuts will put an end to what it calls the cycle of stagnation. The aim is to boost growth by encouraging spending, but relying on the trickle-down effect is a risk, particularly with warnings the economy is in recession.
It's getting more difficult every day. The prices seem to be increasing on everything we use, from fuel to cleaning products. Every single thing that we're looking to purchase is costing more money, but we've managed to keep our prices for the public, same as what there was in 2019. We obviously want the people to have some fun.
Businesses have welcomed the reversal of national insurance increases, as well as the scrapping of plans to raise the rates of corporation tax.
If you take it from here to here, that has risen itself 74%.
This printing firm has been forced to push its prices up, which has seen it lose work overseas.
Any help that any business can get at the minute is just really a godsend. We're going to have to do something to get ourselves in a position of strength to then build on that strength. It seems at a minute that businesses get slightly ahead, they want to start taking their money back off us. We haven't got any money. We're working here every day.
The reduction in national insurance payments will also benefit workers here.
I've actually noticed coming at the end of the month that I'm kind of scraping on maybe like my last 10 days, which obviously my wage has been rising from obviously the different jobs I've earned over the last kind of few years. But for the first time in my life, I feel like this is the first time I've been impacted.
The problems weren't solved before now, so I'm struggling to see how even with these recently announced new rules that they're putting in place, I'm struggling to see how that's going to actually fully solve the situation that pre-existed this.
This will be a new era for the economy, according to the Chancellor. But charities are warning households need solutions now. Ewan Petrie, STV News.
Climate change could mean potatoes may no longer be able to be grown in Scotland as temperatures rise. The cost of potatoes is due to double in the coming months after drought ravaged this year's crop in parts of the country.
Farmers say they need help to radically overhaul the way they work to safeguard local produce in the future, as Caroline Lewis reports.
The rain may have finally come. For this farm in East Lothian, it's come too late. These trucks are working around the clock, ferrying water from a nearby river in a bid to save what's left. But for the potato crop, the damage is already done.
Soul destroying. It doesn't cost us any less to put it in, or any less work, or any less hours. The guys have been absolutely flat out.
Much of what's left is marked and too small to meet supermarket specifications, leaving farmers with difficult decisions to make.
We're now looking at whether we can actually supply contracted sales that we've foresold. We're having to sort of review can we afford to put them back in next year, really? Because it's a double whammy. If we can't supply contracted sales, we're looking at having to then buy in produce to replace our own produce to then resell, which is obviously not good for the business, but not good for food miles or anyone really, because it puts the price up.
And that will hit consumers in the pocket, as it's thought prices could double in the coming months. Carlo's supplier has warned him potatoes will be hard to come by in the coming months, and he can expect a much bigger bill. He's already increased his prices once and doesn't feel he can do it again.
Customers won't pay those prices when they've got all their own problems with energy pricing and things like that. So, yeah, it's very scary. The margins are very small already, and it's going to get a hell of a lot worse. I think if it came to a point where I couldn't use the produce that I wanted to use, I would probably close my doors, I'm not going to lie.
But this year's weather is not a one-off, but more an omen of what's to come. And experts warn by 2030, potatoes could fail to grow in much of the country.
There'll be many more plant heat stress days, hot days in the summers, that could dramatically affect the types of crops we grow and where we grow them. We might still be able to produce some potato in the north of Scotland, but we really need to start to do something now.
So farmers will need to adapt and move away from practices like relying on river water to sustain crops. But innovation requires investment, and with many in the industry already struggling to stay afloat, change is virtually impossible.
It's just investment, but equally, if we haven't got the money from the sales to put it in, it's kind of a struggle.
The Scottish Government says it understands the hardship producers are facing and continues to try and mitigate and monitor issues. But with the new crop due to go in the ground in just 7 months' time, some farms may need a lot more help if they hope to survive. Caroline Lewis, STV News.
Other stories across Scotland, and ScotRail workers will strike during the Scottish National Party's annual conference in Aberdeen. RMT members in Scotland will walk out on Monday, October the 10th. A UK-wide action has already been set for Friday the 8th.
Nearly 500,000 adults in Scotland have not had any COVID vaccinations. Research by Edinburgh University and Public Health Scotland suggests 1 in 10 is unvaccinated and are more likely to be male, living in urban areas of high deprivation, or have more than 3 pre-existing medical conditions.
Residents were given an unofficial fireworks display after an explosion at an electrical substation. Emergency services were called to Culzean Avenue in Courtbridge last night. The fire was extinguished. There are no reports of any casualties.
The Glasgow Pavilion is up for sale. The current owners are in talks with the Ambassador Theatre Group, who run the King's Theatre and Theatre Royal in the city. It's thought the landmark building could go for almost £4 million. A teenager who went deaf in one ear after an operation has become the first in Scotland to get a revolutionary hearing implant. Ross Patterson from Dunblane lost his hearing after vital surgery to remove a dangerous skin growth.
6 months ago, he was fitted with a device under the skin that sends sounds directly to the inner ear through the skull bone rather than through the canal, as with traditional hearing aids. Courtney Cameron reports.
Back doing the things he loves, and he's able to hear everything. Last year, Ross became completely deaf in one ear after undergoing surgery to remove a dangerous skin growth. His life was turned upside down as he adjusted to the thought of never hearing properly again.
I tried to sort of stay a bit positive and sort of go, this is what's happened. I was pulling away from social situations because it was just a bit difficult to hear my friends, and I was a bit tired at the end of the day. I'm still a bit tired after the end of the day, and it's still a little bit hard, but it's much better.
Now everyone is learning how it works. 6 months ago, Ross became the first person in Scotland to be fitted with an ossia. The device is placed underneath the skin and uses a magnetic microphone that sends a Bluetooth signal to the implant, creating a vibration through the skull that passes sound between the ears.
Previously, we used the hearing devices, and they can
connect via an abutment, whereas this is magnetic, so it's very different in that sense. So it's the first time I've used a device with a magnet, so it's been quite exciting.
This is a device which is leaving the skin intact.
The surgeon who carried out the procedure hopes he'll be able to help more people.
Doing this new procedure was slightly different because I had to first of all get a practice done using a dummy. My aim will be to see whether I will be able to help more people. The normal bone-anchored hearing aid will be more suitable for many of the people, but in selected group of people with skin problems and young persons wanting to do sports activities, we'll certainly be able to offer the OCI implant.
It's been an emotional time for Ross's family.
He's been through an awful lot in a very, very short period of time. He's back to himself. He's had a second chance, and he knows that, and I know that he's going to put it to good use.
And now he's able to hear better in school again. Ross says he hopes one day he'll also become an audiology doctor. Courtney Cameron, STV News.
Now here's Ronnie with the sport.
Get your fill of the action. STV Sport, sponsored by Papa John's Pizza.
Good evening. Steve Clarke says Scotland need a repeat of their Ukraine heroics against Ireland tomorrow, warning his players they still have work to do to finish top of their Nations League group. The Scots are looking for revenge against the Irish after suffering a painful defeat when the sides met in the summer, as Jamie Bothrick now explains.
You boys in green, come on you boys in green.
They had plenty to sing about in Dublin 3 months ago, and the Irish fans are travelling to Glasgow full of confidence.
We beat Scotland 3-0 at home. We'll probably win 2 or 3 tomorrow.
I'd love to say a draw, but as long as we don't lose, I'd be happy enough.
We absolutely battered Scotland and Dublin. I don't think that's going to be the same tomorrow, but look, we live in hope.
Ireland hold the bragging rights, but it's Scotland with the commanding position atop Group B1. Avoiding defeat in the 2 remaining fixtures is all they require, but that's not an attitude Steve Clarke will carry into the games.
At the moment, all we've achieved is we can't get relegated from the group. That's the only thing we've achieved. We can finish third, we can finish second, we can finish first. So it's just to treat the Irish game as well as we treated the game against Ukraine, to try and get the 3 points and make sure that we go to Ukraine and still in a good moment, still feeling good about ourselves and looking for what would then be 1 point to qualify.
John McGinn looks certain to win his 50th cap at Hampden tomorrow, and his manager admits he owes a lot to the midfielders' performances in dark blue.
I think he enjoys it when I push him a little bit further forward and he's got the chance to make those goals, to make those assists. It works well for us. It has worked well for us, and obviously I'm indebted to John for a lot of the good wins that we've had, because he's managed to get the goals or the assists. So hopefully he can keep it going and hopefully he can get to 100 and get a few more goals and assists along the way.
Yeah, I think he's a massive leader in the squad. Probably not as a screamer and shouter and a talker as such, but I think more on the pitch, when he drives forward or flies into a tackle, it just brings the full team. And at home, certainly the stadium with him, and it raises everyone's game.
Josh Doig and Declan Gallagher are added to the squad for tomorrow night's clash. Jamie Borthwick, STV News.
Meanwhile, Irish boss Stephen Kenny says their previous 3-0 win over the Scots will have no bearing on the game tomorrow. The squad are training at Hampden tonight. Kenny says they'll need to be at their best to get a result against Steve Clarke's men.
This is a new game. Scotland were very good the other night. They played very well. And to be honest with you, they've been very good since Steve Clarke took charge and they've qualified for the Euros. And, they've consistently, been good over that period. So anything we get, we know that we'll have to earn.
Kyle Lafferty has been dropped from the Northern Ireland squad after a video emerged which appears to show him making a sectarian slur. Kilmarnock confirmed on Thursday the club was investigating the incident after the clip circulated on social media. Now Northern Ireland have confirmed he'd been sent home from their Nations League camp. Rugby and Glasgow Warriors head coach Franco Smith says he's looking for a huge step forward from his team as they take on Cardiff Blues tonight. Meanwhile, Scotland's women have flown out to New Zealand ahead of the World Cup. It's the first time they've qualified for the tournament in 12 years.
We know what it's going to be like with the jet lag and stuff. It's going to be tough. We've got 5 days or so before the first kind of match week, so we've got time to build into that. And yeah, we've got all of our strategies in place, nutrition, sleep stuff. So we're feeling really good and really ready to go.
To boxing, where Hannah Rankin says her body's in the shape of its life ahead of her world title defence. Rankin is the first Scottish female to be crowned world champion and will put her belts on the line against Terry Harper in Nottingham tomorrow.
I'm really excited to be in fight week now. Body's in the best shape of its life, and I'm feeling that sort of pre-fight excitement now. I'm going in there in such great shape and mentally, physically as well. And it's just those two things. Everything collides at the right time for the right reasons, and I'm just feeling $1 million.
Good luck to Hannah. Finally, news from the French Open Golf, where Robert McIntyre and fellow Scot Grant Forrest are tied in 6th. Have a very good weekend.
Get your fill of the action. STV Sport, sponsored by Papa John's Pizza.
Sean has the weekend weather forecast.
Well, I've been saying it all week. We're in for a big change as we head into the weekend. Quiet weather-wise during tomorrow, but it's all eyes towards Greenland and Iceland at the moment, where we've got some very strong winds developing here. A deep low-pressure system, which is going to track its way eastward, sitting to the north of us on Sunday, bringing us strong winds, heavy rain, very autumnal feeling, I think, Sunday and also Monday, and also turning quite a bit chillier as well. Let's look at your weekend forecast.
The outlook for the day is calm and settled. TUI Blue Hotels sponsor STV Weather.
So if you've got some outdoor plans this weekend and you can pick between Saturday and Sunday, I'd definitely go with Saturday because it's going to be a pretty decent day. If you've still got stuff to do in the garden, well, tomorrow's going to be a good day. A lot of dry weather, sunshine, light winds. And then it's a huge change as we go into Sunday because we'll see wet and windy weather coming in, turning quite autumnal and also turning quite a bit chillier, especially by the time we get to Monday. Our daytime temperatures will probably just be about 10 to 12 degrees in the low to mid 50s in Fahrenheit. So a daytime chill into the start of next week. We've already had chills by night over the last couple of nights, and that'll be the case again tonight. Temperatures over inland areas, Lanarkshire, inland Ayrshire, also across the Highlands and Perthshire. Temperatures locally down to about 3 or 4 degrees. Same also in Stirlingshire too. Not quite as chilly in the west. Across the Hebrides we'll still hang on to a few scattered showers, but those showers easing elsewhere with dry weather. Now look at the cloud layer. I've popped that on for you tomorrow. I don't normally put it on because generally we're covered by that cloud. But tomorrow the cloud well broken, good spells of sunshine, long spells of sunshine across the southwest. And temperatures, well, they're not overly high. They're about 15 or 16. But given the light winds, it shouldn't feel too bad at all. Certainly a lot better than it's going to feel on Sunday. We'll see some heavy rain spreading in from the west along with windier conditions and also turning that bit chillier too. Bye-bye.
TUI Blue Hotels sponsor STV Weather.
I'm off ski shortly, but Emma, you're back in our screens in half an hour's time with What's on Scotland. What have you got on this week?
I am indeed, yes. Lots coming up on tonight's show, including Scotland's first black superhero, which features Glaswegian landmarks in comic form.
My name is Etienne Kubwawo. I'm originally from Congo. When I came here, it was quite difficult for me the first time because my English wasn't that good. You know, you meet some people who think that maybe you don't belong to this country, and obviously trying to fit in was the hardest part of it. But the good thing about Scotland is that people make Glasgow. People are lovely here and welcoming. I mean, Scotland is a melting point of different cultures. I decided to create Beats of War comic book, which is Scotland's first black superhero in Scotland. A story that follows a character that's come from another planet to find answers to save his planet from robotic invaders, but really a story based on my experiences moving from Congo to Scotland and struggling to fit in. I decided to set Beats of War in Glasgow because Glasgow now is my second home. I came here when I was 19 years old, so you can imagine I've grown up to become a mature man here in Scotland, because there's that 5-year-old ATM that always loved superheroes and always wanted to be a superhero. And I feel like highlighting Scotland, Glasgow specifically, to begin with, was really important to me. I was like, you know what, I'm going to get landmarks that are around me. So I picked up the crane, which is the mothership in Beats of War.
Wow, and you've got George Clooney on as well. Did you meet him?
That's a sore point, John. Laura's been swanning around with Hollywood royalty. I'm not jealous at all. That's all from us tonight.
Bye-bye.